Yo, what's going on guys, it is Foxy19 here, welcome back to a brand new video and the first F1 debate of 2024. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, feel free to drop it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well, and let's get cracking. And we're going to lower that camera there because it is completely messed up right now and we do not want that, but I don't even think that made a difference. Obviously, there was a race last week at the Bahrain Grand Prix, but as you would have seen via the content on my channel this week, I've really just not had any time at all to make videos. So, of course, we're just settling it for today. And the topic of discussion, as the title will be saying, is there really any point in watching F1 at the moment? Because right now, after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, I kind of am asking myself that same question. Is there really any point in me watching Formula 1? Because right now it's probably in the worst state that I can remember it for quite a long time. And I think it's getting so difficult to watch the sport right now. And I'll kind of delve into my own thoughts on it and counter basically for and against, as we obviously always do with these videos. So first things first though, talking about the race weekend itself, of course, the star of the show, Oliver Bearman. We're going to talk about that man first. Of course, he come into Formula 1. Obviously, we wish all the best for Carlos Sainz in his speedy recovery after his operation. And Bearman comes into FP3, literally a heavily interrupted FP3, of course, as well, with the red flag that happened thanks to Zhou Guanyu's crash. And of course, he comes in, he does a great job in practice, he does a great job in qualifying, only missing out on knocking out Hamilton by 3/100ths of a second, starts P11 and fights his way back up to P7 and gets points on the board in his first ever F1 race for Ferrari. And to be honest, to do that on one of the most trickiest circuits on the F1 calendar, the Jeddah Corniche Street Circuit, it's super high speed, the walls are coming at you thick and fast, and as we saw with Lance Stroll twice, and with Logan Sargent, and also with Zhou Guanyu to a respect, he didn't make a single mistake. Yeah, of course, he wasn't the quickest out there, Leclerc finished way clear of him. He's not looking to beat Leclerc, realistically, even if Bearman didn't score any points, he'd actually have done a good job because he just didn't do anything wrong. He just had a solid Grand Prix. So for Bearman's perspective, it's an outstanding achievement from him to come into that car with literally no time to adjust to it and not even get a chance to develop a setup for that car, to just go ahead and get some points and to beat Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton. Of course, I know they were on different strategies and they were trying a different gamble, but still, you can't take anything away from his performances. And for me, again, it's very similar to, I don't want it to feel very similar to the Nick de Vries situation, but for me, that felt more like a drive, which for me felt more worthy of a drive for next year compared to the de Vries one for the Williams team. And there's a bit of a difference between that. Obviously, with the Williams drive that de Vries did, it's around Monza. Now, no track is ever super easy and super simple. But for me, in my opinion, I felt like de Vries went into that Williams car at a track where the Williams was the absolute best. It was the best track that you could possibly get Williams to go onto. The car was super quick in a straight line. And that's exactly what the Williams was. And there aren't too many heavy, high-speed corners. You've got, obviously, probably the Lesmos and the Ascari chicane. Apart from that, the rest is pretty much just heavy braking zones. Get those right, and the Williams, all you got to do is just, well, put your foot flat to the floor and off you go. Job done, like. So, but here, you've got so much more than that. You've got heavy braking zones. You've got high-speed corners. You're on a straight track. The walls are coming at you. Now, of course, yeah, he's in the second fastest car on the grid, the Ferrari. Doesn't matter. When you've had no time to practice, every other team and driver has done full 1.5 days of testing. They've done the full Bahrain Grand Prix weekend. They've done 2 practice sessions already at the Jeddah circuit. So they've got way more of knowledge of that. And of course, they, of all, apart from obviously Carlos Sainz at that point, have retained their drive from last year. So realistically, they're driving evolved cars of what they've got. And for Bearman, he's obviously done a little bit of practice in the Ferrari, the 2022 one, because they're allowed to use that car now. And he's done loads of practice he's done 2 practice sessions in the Haas from last year. For me, that drive definitely warrants a drive or permanent seat on the grid for next year. Probably at Haas, I think. In my opinion, I don't think Kevin Magnussen will probably retain his drive. I think Hulkenberg's got the edge over K-Mag, But I definitely can see Oliver Bearman getting himself a drive next year, 100% in my personal opinion. And a massive shout out to him for such a great weekend. The rest of the weekend, though, was just very flat and very stale. And I feel like a lot of this season is just going to be that way, with Red Bull just being so far clear of the rest. And I'm going to move on to the topic of the question. Is F1 worth watching right now? The biggest answer is no. It really isn't worth watching it. You know, yesterday evening, I had the F1 on my main TV downstairs, and then I had my laptop on my sofa with the Arsenal game on, because obviously Arsenal versus Brentford and the Formula 1 was on at the same time. Obviously F1 started a bit earlier. It got to a point after the safety car and Verstappen and Perez and Leclerc overtaking Hamilton, and the two Red Bulls taking over Norris, and took Leclerc a bit longer, for me to just sit there and go, actually, do you know what? For the first time, I think, ever, I'm going to just put the F1 on a low volume on my laptop, and I'm going to swap my TV, my main TV downstairs, and put the football on. Because it's more fun right now to do that than to watch Formula 1. We're at a stage where, unfortunately, since the second half of 2022, up until, well, to be honest, for the foreseeable future, we're going into race weekends knowing exactly who's going to win the race. And I'm going to make this quote again because I've said it multiple times and it needs to be reiterated because I know people will just complain about it. I'm not blaming Red Bull for making the sport super boring and super disappointing. At the end of the day, they've built a car which is extraordinarily good. Extraordinarily good? That's not even a proper word. It's extremely fast, it's extremely reliable, and it's efficient in every single area of the racetrack. That's Red Bull. Full credit to them for doing that, okay? It's up to the other 9 teams, and it always has been, and no matter who it is, it always will be. Even when Mercedes dominated, it's up to them to build a car that's good enough to actually, you know, compete and win races and create a title fight. I don't know. I just don't think the ground effect era of Formula 1 has done anything to help us, and I actually don't think the cost cap era of Formula 1 has done anything to help us. You know, I mean, I saw a report earlier this week, I think it was Autosport or Motorsport.com, and it was like the newer fans that joined from like 2021 Drive to Survive are very much just going away from Formula 1. But financially, Formula 1's in a very, very good place. And that kind of got me thinking, does F1 really care about the fans? Or do they just care about the money that they're bringing in? And I think I know the answer to that question. And I think the problem is when you've got a team that's so dominant, you've always got to find a way, whether it's a big regulation change or whether it's a small regulation change, to see if you could attempt to just make things a little bit more competitive and try and close the field up. Picture one of Red Bull's advantages. I don't know, something to do with their drag efficiency or something like that, their beam wing or something. Make a regulation change to do with the beam wings, or, you know, or like the rear wings or something like that, to try and make something into play. But the problem is, since the back end of 2022, obviously we had the one regulation change in 2023, which was to raise the floor edges by 15 millimeters, as more so as a safety reason to stop severe porpoising. Apart from that, though, nothing's changed to try and close the field up. It's almost like F1 have just sat there and gone, we're happy with what's going on right now. But I can guarantee you that every single fan, unless you're a Red Bull and Max Verstappen fan, can guarantee that you are by no means happy at all with the way Formula 1 is at the moment. And I just think that since 2021, the final race, Abu Dhabi, since that point onwards, F1's never been the same for me, personally. Now, this is my own opinion, and of course, you guys are more than entitled, like I always say in the comment section down below, put your opinions in there, in the comments, let me know what you think. Obviously, I want to hear your opinions as well as mine. I just think that Formula 1 right now, since the end of 2021, since the end of the previous generation of cars, has not been the same. And I just think it's gone down a path, as I was about to make a Star Wars geeky joke. It's gone down a path that I can't follow, okay? Sorry, Padme, I had to make the reference. It's gone down a path where I'm finding it very, very hard to follow. And don't get me wrong, speaking of finding it hard to follow, of course I know why the regulation change came into place, and it was a worthy reason for it. There was a significant amount of dirty air coming off the cars in the old generation of cars, which meant that overtaking was very hard. And we saw that in races like the Spanish Grand Prix in 2021, when Hamilton was way faster than Verstappen, but couldn't find a way past because it was just so tricky to follow in the turbulent air. In Russia, I think as well, it was tricky there. In Austin, Hamilton was in the same situation chasing Verstappen and he couldn't beat him because the turbulent air again. There's been so many different ways and you needed a very big advantage over the guy in front to make the overtake work. So I get it. I understand why this come into play, but the ground effect era of Formula 1, I don't know if I'm just being stupid or I'm being biased or I'm being salty or I'm being whatever, has genuinely been one of the worst eras of Formula 1 I've ever watched in my life. Like, it's just been terrible. It's gone from a sport that's been great and entertaining and unpredictable to a sport where I'm just sat there going, who's going to get third? Because Max Verstappen's going to get pole, and then Max Verstappen's going to win, and Perez will probably get second, and who's going to get a podium spot? And then the most entertaining bits on the track is a battle for P12. No disrespect to the cars that are in P12. I don't care. All we want to see is fighting at the front of the field, and we're not. But at the end of the day, as I said, it's the 10 teams' job to do it, and the other 9 teams are not doing a good enough job. Red Bull are doing a great job, and complimentary to them. I think if we were in an era where there was a different team dominating that wasn't Red Bull, say for example Mercedes and Red Bull fought really hard in 2021, come 2022 it was, I don't know, McLaren versus Ferrari. McLaren then dropped off, Ferrari dominated this year, 23 and into 24. I don't think it would feel as painful. I think because Red Bull are just quite a hated team, I mean in general, because the more that you win, the longer that you win, the more your team as the rest of the fan base is hated. Like, don't get me wrong, come 2021, a lot more people were more invested and happy for Red Bull than they were for Mercedes, because finally there was a team going head to head with the mighty Mercs and really giving them a good run for their money. Now, of course, we all hate Red Bull, and we want a team to support to take down Red Bull, no matter what team it is. But I think if it was a different team dominating, like say Ferrari got on top of these ground effect cars and was the quickest out there, I don't think we'd have too much of a problem. We'd get bored, obviously, but maybe not too much because it's a different team for once, or McLaren, for example, is a different team. But because it's Red Bull again, I think we're just getting fed up with it now. I personally am. I'm getting fed up with the sport. Obviously, there's so much problems going on outside of the sport, especially within Red Bull as well. I'm personally not going to comment on that. I think it's too much of a sensitive subject for me to do and to talk about. If you really want to hear my opinions, let me know in the comment section down below, and maybe for the next weekend's F1 debate video, when I make one, I'll talk about it and give you my genuine thoughts on it. I do feel it's quite sensitive to speak about, but if you want me to talk about it, I'll be more than happy to talk about it, and I'll just I'll put a disclaimer in that video that these are just my thoughts, and you know, don't take them for granted type thing, you know. So that's what I thought of it. But like I said, the race was, it was all right. Oh, who am I kidding? It was boring. Max obviously and Red Bull were the fastest. Leclerc solidified P3. Hamilton and Norris tried a different strategy. That didn't work. Alonso and Piastri, Piastri made the overtake on Alonso early on. Alonso stuck with him for a bit. Russell didn't do anything in the whole race, didn't make any progress at all. I think he actually lost out to, no, he didn't lose out to Alonso. Alonso started in front of him. They didn't do anything. There was a good little scrap between Hamilton and Piastri. I thought Hamilton did a great job on his medium tyres. I thought Norris did a fantastic job on his medium tyres. The battle for 12th was quite entertaining. Nothing happened. I'm not even going to try and, you know, build a sort of entertainment factor of trying to pick out bits that were amazing, because none of it was. It was another rubbish race, and it adds to the calendar of being boring. So that's a shame. It is what it is, though. I love the track, though. I'm going to put that out there. I'll bring some positivity into this video. 14 minutes into the recording, I'll bring some positivity. I love the Jeddah Corniche Street Circuit. I think it's bloody awesome. I love it. It's a great challenge. It's got a lot of tricky corners, a lot of high speed, a lot of danger, a lot of walls. I love it. I don't obviously love the fact that in qualifying and in practice, we see a lot of dangerous moments with the high speed cars coming through and the other cars just staying in the middle of the track and getting in the way. That is dangerous, and I do think they need to change that going forwards. But overall, it's a cracking circuit. I really enjoy it. It's one of my favourite tracks on the calendar. and I really, really like it. And yeah, it's just a shame that it didn't provide the thriller that we saw in 21 and 22, because those two races were mental, and I love those races. But yeah, it is what it is. Now, let's have a look at the teams then and see how they got on. Well, Red Bull, obviously they dominated. They did everything perfectly. Fastest car, they didn't get the fast lap actually. Fastest car, pole position, 1-2 again. And I'm kind of getting the feeling, trying to bring a bit of optimism into this. I feel like this is going to be a 2019 replica season. I think Red Bull are going to get a 1-2 finish for probably the next few races, probably up until Imola. I don't know how many races there are up until Imola, to be honest, but I think they'll get a 1-2 basically up until Imola. I think, you know, the likes of Australia, China, Japan, I think they'll get a 1-2 in all those races. And I think like 2019, when Red Bull and Ferrari then caught up to Mercedes and started making their lives a lot more difficult, I think that's what everything will happen and transpire to. Yes, Red Bull are going to upgrade that car, and they're going to keep working on it, and they're going to keep making it better. I think the rest of the grid, though, have taken multiple steps backwards in order to get a better baseline to go even further forwards than where they could do before. And I think come the upgrades and when the development and the learning for these new concepts come into play, I think then we'll see in the second half of the season a lot more of a competitive one. I think for me right now, personally, I've written off the entire first half of the season. I can't be arsed with it. I think the second half of the season could be a lot more entertaining. I could be completely wrong. Red Bull could get a 1-2 in every single race. Red Bull could do what they didn't do in 2023 and win every single race this season. I'm just trying to build some optimism. It is what it is. Ferrari, I've already talked about Oliver Bearman. Solid drive though from Leclerc, solidifying Ferrari as the second fastest car on the grid. He complained of quite a few issues in the race, which they talk about internally, which I'm not quite sure what, but he qualified brilliantly, did a great race, can't do any more than that. McLaren, they were pretty decent. Norris again tried something different. Piastri was super consistent, had Norris's mark all weekend, which is an important one for Oscar Piastri, but yeah, he did a great job all weekend. Mercedes were rubbish this weekend. They were absolutely horrific. They had a very good low drag setup, but they've got massive issues with bouncing again, which obviously Hamilton made a big complaint about. And, you know, he's not wrong. You know, they're the third year now of this regulation change, and they've got bouncing problems still, and they haven't fixed them. So they've got a lot of work to do in the data to find out what. And Hamilton said that they went through literally every single setup option, and nothing worked to get rid of the bouncing. So they've got a hell of a lot of work to do on that. Maybe it's to do with the fact that they've now moved to this push rod suspension, rear suspension. I hope it was a push rod, not a pull rod. And maybe they're just trying to learn that rear suspension a lot more. Maybe they can bring something to try and mitigate that. Maybe if it's to do with the suspension, maybe it's just learning the geometries on that area. Maybe it's the floor that needs to be modification. Maybe it's the diffuser. I don't know. But they obviously had great straight line speed. But as you saw, I think it was Hamilton... I think he was like, by the exit of turn 1, he was like 2-3 tenths behind Lando Norris, even trying to have a look in towards turn 4. By the end of the first sector, he was 1.3 seconds back. He was miles away. That car in the high-speed cornering for the Mercedes was horrifically bad for them. And they've got a lot of work to do if they want to get anywhere near podiums throughout the course of this season. Aston Martin, Alonso maximised everything that he could do. He did a great job in that car. Again, that car's pretty consistent in qualifying, gives him a lot of pace and performance. In the race, they drop off quite considerably compared to McLaren and, not necessarily McLaren, but compared to Ferrari in particular. McLaren had the pace on them, and Mercedes didn't have the pace on that occasion. But we need to look at Lance Stroll. I'm sorry, I'm about to be Mr. Negative Man again. That kid does not deserve a drive in Formula 1. He's a waste of space. Okay, hopefully no one comes and solidifies and cuts my face. He made that mistake in practice. He made it again in the race. It's not good enough. Like, that car is genuinely a decent car. It's not enough to be, you know, second in the constructors. Like, Red Bull and Ferrari are definitely clear. But if they want to move up in the Constructors' Championship, they need a decent car, they've got a top quality driver in Alonso, and they've got an absolute waste of space in Stroll. All of us on the outside know the weakness of that car and that team. Sorry, that team. All of us know it, but obviously when the owner of Lawrence Stroll he's never going to sack Lance Stroll. He just won't. He will keep Lance Stroll in that team. But at some point, someone needs to just go to... I'll go to his office. Let me go into Lance Stroll's office and just go, mate, your son sucks, all right? Get him out of the team, mate. If you want to get more of that moolah, get him gone. They won't do that at all. I'll probably get punched in the face, to be honest. Yeah, like, he's so bad. He's such a bad driver. He needs to go. And he cost them again critically here today. Haas. Gonna give a shout out to Haas. That is some... You know, when there's a team... When you look at a race team, right? Haas genuinely solidified the term race team. They had a decent race pace, actually. Better than the RBs. Better than the Saubers. Better than the Williams and better than the Alpines. And I'm noting that because I need to remember the other teams I have to talk about. And K-Mag had a massive 20-second plus time penalty. Hulkenberg needed to make another pit stop because they did the gamble with the safety car for track position. Magnussen was going almost 2 seconds a lap slower in the first sector alone, but had enough pace and enough fight as well, especially with the Tsunoda fight, to just get his elbows out and get the job done and allow Hulkenberg to make the overcut work. Do you know what? Bravo, because that is some brilliant team play from them, and it's full credit to them. You know, they've done a great job, and you've got to respect it. Literally, respect that wholeheartedly. So fair play to them. Sauber didn't really do much, to be honest, in the race. They were just, well, participants, really, as were Alpine, as were RB, and as were Williams, really. They all just participated. They were all just in their own group, all just having their own little battles in there. Tsunoda had a great qualifying, but he obviously dropped down in the race, didn't work out for him. Ricciardo had an absolute shocker of a qualifying and a shocker of a race, and right now he's not proving at all that he deserves to be in that Red Bull seat. To be honest, I don't think he deserves to be in the RB seat at the moment. I don't think he's that good. I think he's just lost all of his talent, to be honest. Maybe he needs a bit more time. I don't know, but right now he's not really doing enough in there, and it is what it is. But that's kind of it, really, for this F1 debate, like the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Normally I ramble on for like 20, 30, not 20 minutes, but like 30, 40 minutes. The problem is there's just nothing to talk about right now in Formula 1, on track that is, that's worth the time, because nothing happens at the moment. It is what it is. Obviously next time around we got the Australian Grand Prix. Red Bull are going to win that again. It'll be a 1-2 for Red Bull. Ferrari will end up being the second fastest team, and then it's whoever Mercedes, McLaren and Aston Martin wants to get their noses in front will do so. If you guys end up enjoying the video though, drop it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. And like I said, let me know in the comment section down below if you genuinely do want me to have a discussion about the Christian Horner Red Bull power struggle, whatever the hell's going on in that department, because it's an absolute mess. And I'll talk about it. But for now, guys, I'm out of here. Take care all. Peace.